Thank you everybody for joining in and welcome to today's webinar, a guided tour of the new features in ECLAIR 3.7. My name is Lavinia Battaglia and I'm, amongst other things, the customer service representative here at BUGSENG. Let me now introduce our speaker, Roberto Bagnara. Roberto is our CTO and Chief Scientist here at BUGSENG, other than a very passionate computer science professor at the University of Parma. On top of that, Roberto is also a member of the MISRA-C working group and of the International Standardization working group of the C programming language. Before turning it over to Roberto, please note that you can write all of your questions in the Q&A section here on the left of your screen. We will leave 10-15 minutes at the end to try and reply to as many of you as we can. All right then, let's get started. Roberto, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Lavinia. I'm very happy to be here today to present some of the new features of ECLAIR 3.7.0. There are several features of which we are particularly proud of. I will only be able to show probably 1/4 or 1/5 of the feature of the ECLAIR graphical user interface. Many of the things that I will show can also be done from the command line, but today I will only focus on use of the ECLAIR graphical user interface, which you can see in the shared screen now. What I am projecting now is the landing page of the ECLAIR graphical user interface, which can be navigated sequentially using the next button, or also by switching from one part to the other. So we start from the beginning. In this initial section of the graphical user interface wizard, you can see some instructions about how to use the graphical user interface. And then we can move to the second page where we load a project configuration, which is a file in a format called ECS, meaning ECLAIR settings. Okay, so here I'm loading an example project that I have already prepared for this presentation. It's a simple text file. It's basically a sequence of assignments, and what it contains will be shown in the next while we go. Okay, so I am analyzing a project which is called Present. It's not because I'm using it for the presentation, it's because its name is Present, and you can find it on GitHub. If you look up on Google something like Present Cipher GitHub, and you will land to the web page. It's something to do with encryption and unencryption, so I know nothing about this project. Anyway, I have chosen a name. I have chosen a top-level directory so that all the paths that will be given by the tool will be relative to this path. In the environment settings, I have put nothing, so this is just a standard path environment variable that is defined in my system. I need not add anything. I need not define file variables or string variables. For those of you who already know how ECLAIR works, ECLAIR works by intercepting the toolchain components. So it works by intercepting the compilers, the assemblers, the librarian, and the linker. And in this case, I am using the GNU toolchain. So the compilers are GCC and G++. G++ is useless in this case because the code doesn't contain any C++ code. But okay, just to show you how you would do the complete thing. Then I have to define a named set of services. And for this experiment, I will choose MISRA-C 2012 revision 1, the entire set of ECLAIR services supporting this coding standard. I will use the ECLAIR bug finder. I will compute metrics, because one of the features that are new in ECLAIR 3.7.0 is that the metrics can be computed straight from the graphical user interface. And I also enable the BARR-C 2018 coding standard, because another of the important features of ECLAIR 3.7.0 is extensive support for this coding standard, which, as I argued in the previous webinar, should be adopted in conjunction with MISRA-C. Okay, now I can define named set of files. I have two sets, one that seems empty, but really this doesn't mean no file. It means all the files which are below the project root. And I also define a named set of files, which is all files apart from those that are listed here. All those that are in the vendor directory. And this is because this project contains third-party code. In particular, the unit testing framework is of a third party, so there is no claim of compliance to any coding standard for this part. So I have excluded this. And then also assert.c and assert.h are files from a third party. There is an MIT copyright statement on top of them. So I can use either treat all files the same way, or treat this set of files in a special way. I will show you in a minute what I'm doing with these sets. Okay, tasks. So ECLAIR works by intercepting the invocation of the toolchain components. So the compiler, the linker, the assembler, the librarian. So in order to analyze something, I have to build something. And only what is compiled or linked or assembled is analyzed. Okay, so I need to tell ECLAIR how to build this project. I can define here named builds. I just need one. I've called it make all. Why? Because it consists in going into the top level directory of the project and running make with some parallelism. -J4 instructs make to use parallelism up to degree 4 in order to do the compilation. Since only what is compiled is analyzed, if I want to analyze everything, I have to make sure that incremental compilation features of the build system do not get in the way. For example, make is a smart tool, and it will not recompile a translation unit if its dependencies have not changed since last time it was compiled. So if I want to compile everything, as it is the case now, I will have to clean everything. And so I define also one clean task. I call it make clean, not surprisingly, because it does what? It goes to the directory and it does make clean. Okay. Settings. Okay, I have some extra configuration here if I want, and in fact I do want. For example, for the analysis configuration, I am loading an extra configuration file that defines, for example, the vocabulary of the project. I will say something later about what is the vocabulary of the project when I will illustrate some of the BARR-C 2018 rules. And then for the reporting phase, which is highly configurable if you want, but in this case, I need not do any configuration. So I just have this show reports configuration for which I have no options, no extra option, no extra inputs. And now I put everything together. For the services, I enable all those that are in the only category I've defined, which was, sorry, the named set, which is the only one I have. It was called a default. Let me go here. You see, default is all of this. I could define here another named set. For example, I could call it BARR-C only. And in that set, I would define, I would put only the BARR-C 2018 checkers. Okay. For the files, you see here, I have the option of treating specially in the reporting phase. I have two named sets. Do you remember? I have defined two named sets. So one that contains everything below the project root, and other that contains everything but these things. The but part can be seen from this red cross in a circle. Okay, I'm using this named set in order to treat these files differently. So I'm not interested in violations that concern only these files because they were not meant to comply to anything. Okay, for the clean task, I choose the only one I have, make clean. Build task is make all. For the analysis settings, I have only one, so it's called check rules. Same for the report setting. So this is the configuration which is called default. I could add many other here by clicking on the plus button, okay? And then I can move to the run part, and now I run the analysis. Okay, you see that we are running. So 4 translation units are compiled in parallel, and then they are all linked together. So the analysis has finished. Then ECLAIR informs us that it is producing the reports. We will see what these reports are in the remaining of the webinar. And we have to close this, which does not auto-close because it's very important that the operator notices if the analysis went wrong in some way. Okay, so I can now move to the view section, and I can view the analysis results of several analyses. As you can see, I did several tests in preparation for the webinar, so I'm taking the last set of the results that have been computed. And to see the detailed result, I click on View. Okay, you see a new window has opened. And since, as I said, in 1 hour, I can only hope to present 1/4 or 1/5 of the features of the graphical user interface, I will skip a lot of things and move to this part where we can see the reports. So we have a total of I don't know, around less than 3,000 reports, and these are for only 97 of the 416 enabled services. And so this means that this project is not bad at all. If you go to GitHub, you will see that there is a claim of compliance to BARR-C 2018. However, apparently the developers didn't have any tool to check compliance, so it is not really completely compliant, but it's compliant to many MISRA rules and to many BARR-C rules. So let me go here. And okay, here we can see all the reports that have been produced by ECLAIR divided by service and by kind. Kind, we have violation, caution, information, and metric. Okay, so a violation is when ECLAIR has found a violation, and this is a definite violation. So unless there is a bug in ECLAIR, this is a genuine violation. There are no false positives in violation. Okay, when ECLAIR is unsure, so to speak, it will issue a caution. Okay, for example, here we have this service, MISRA-C 2012 revision 1, so the latest one from February 2019, directive 1.1, which is any implementation defining behavior on which the output of the program depends should be documented and understood. Okay. This project is compiled in C99 mode. We can check this later, maybe. And in C99, there are 112 implementation defined behavior. And according to Directive 1.1 of MISRA-C, you should document all the one upon which the program depends. And ECLAIR has found that of these 112, this program certainly depends on 8 of them and possibly depends on other 20. So you can see that even in this, for this directive, ECLAIR is giving a lot of assistance. So it means we need not worry about the implementation defined behaviors that are not among these 28, which are the vast majority, which is good. What is an information? An information is a report that is neither a violation, neither a caution. It's supplementary information, something that can be useful. So let's see, we see here in Directive 4.4, which is a directive saying that you shouldn't comment out code, we have 420 information. What is it? Why is that? It's because the spirit of the rule is that you should be aware of what you are compiling and what you are not compiling. Okay, so as an extra service, ECLAIR tells you which parts of the source code was not compiled. Okay, maybe this is expected, okay, maybe not. It's an additional service. However, and this allows me to show the new features, one of the most important new features of ECLAIR 3.7.0, which is this one. Suppose I'm not interested in information. I click here, and I can hide all the reports whose kind is information. Okay, they have all disappeared. They are no longer here. So for this guideline of MISRA, there were only information reports. As soon as I hide them, nothing remains. So good. So it means I don't have violation of this rule. Let us look at another example of information, which is perhaps interesting to some of you. So here, for this rule, which says that the value returned by a function having a non-void return type shall be used, there is one information. There is no violation, and there is one information. Why is that? Okay, so ECLAIR says that as an information that this function, which is put char, is the return value is casted to void 51 times, and it is showing one example, this one, and there are another 50 examples that are not shown, and this gives me the opportunity to show you another feature of ECLAIR. So you see that we are brought to this file, unity.c, where you don't see any invocation of putchar. Where it is? We can see it in the next area of the violation, where we show the code after preprocessing. This is before preprocessing. This is after preprocessing. And this is a definition of the macro that is responsible for the fact that putchar is always called with its return value casted to void. So it is an information, it's not a violation. Why? Because casting to void is one of the ways in which it is legitimate to deviate this rule, in a sense. Okay, so it's an exception to the rule. However, it's still useful information, because you should take into account that putchar may return EOF in case of error. So the fact that it is the value is always casted to void and so ignored is not going to satisfy everyone. So in a very critical field, this may be undesirable. So let me now play with this new selection feature of ECLAIR. I see here that there are many things that are violated. Okay, so these are thresholds for metrics. So let us see this. So here we have that this function as a number of acyclic paths, which is 135, whereas the threshold suggested by the HIS consortium is 80. So this is presented as a violation because I have asked for this. And then we have violation for MISRA-C 2012, not very many rules. We have metric reports that are not that are simple the values, and then we have reports about NC3, which is the abbreviation used in ECLAIR for BARR-C 2018. Why N? Because this coding standard started in 2009 when it was called Neutrino Embedded C. So this we consider this to be the first version. Then there was BARR-C 2013, and now we are at the third version of the coding standard, so NC3. Okay, and then below you see that there are many services for which there are no reports. So many bug finder reports, many bug finder services do not find any reports. You see, the project is compliant to many MISRA-C 2012 rules. There are no reports for this. They are all enabled, okay? And it is compliant for all of those. And it is compliant also to a good portion of the BARR-C coding standard. So I promised to show you more about this selection feature. So let's suppose we are just worried about the mandatory MISRA-C guidelines because they cannot be deviated. Okay, so let us hide all the reports whose strictness is advisory. We don't want to see the advisory. We don't want to see the required. And we don't want to see the other rules that are not MISRA, so they don't have. Okay, so this project only violates, possibly violates. These are caution, as you can see. Cautions about two mandatory rules. So it's not so bad, okay? By writing a lot of deviation reports for the required rules, it is possible to claim a MISRA compliance as soon as we have justified this. You see that below the hidden things have not disappeared. So, for example, I don't know, there are 420 reports, violation reports for this directive, which are not being shown because we have decided to hide them. Okay. Okay. So let's look at these cautions. Okay. Okay. We have here use of a portion of an array where ECLAIR is not sure that the array position has been initialized. So it is not trivial to understand whether this is actually possible or not. You see that PS box is initialized here, and then there is this assert 0, but are we sure that assert 0 cannot return? Maybe assert 0 can return, in which case we end up in trouble. So anyway, we have to study this and maybe conclude that they are safe. Let's look at this other thing. Okay, so the size t argument passed to any function in string.h shall have an appropriate value. So let us look at what ECLAIR is saying. ECLAIR is saying that here there is a division operator, 80 divided by 8, which makes 10. However, and this is expanded in this macro, however, we are not sure that the p key argument to memcopy has at least a size 10. Okay, so and indeed being a parameter to the function, this requires careful reasoning. So I would say this is a defect, independently from the fact that something really bad can happen or not. Okay, so I have decided to concentrate only on the mandatory rules. There are other possibilities with which I can explain this new feature of ECLAIR, where you can prioritize, you can temporarily hide reports that you maybe want to look at later. So there is this quite old, I must say, initiative called software quality objectives for source code. It's a work of people mainly from the French automotive sector. They defined 6 levels of compliance for source code. So we have written a configuration encoding these levels, and we can see it at work here. So it's called SQO, Software Quality Objective. Okay, I don't want to hide all that are at software quality objective 1. I want to show only those. Okay, so you see that if your organization has in its functional safety organization has decided to adhere to software to the software quality objective definition, then if your piece of code is, if this piece of code we are analyzing is at software quality objective 1, then we only need to take care of 2 violations of MISRA 2012 rules, and we have a few metrics that are exceeded that we will have to either justify or we will have to improve the code. If we go at software quality objective 2, you see that, okay, then we need to take care of more things. And if we add 3, I think it's in this case, I saw no difference. So 3 is okay. 4, you see that we have one more thing to take care of. 5, okay. 6, the highest level, okay. And so this is what we have to take care of if we stick to this software quality objectives that are, as you can see, a great simplification if you don't need to make a strong MISRA compliance. If I click on show here, it will toggle. From show, it will become hide. Okay, so you see that even if software quality objective 6, there are still many MISRA guidelines that are violated. This may be allowed or not, you know, you judge. Anyway, the new feature of ECLAIR is that you can easily prioritize, select the reports that you want to take care of first. Okay, so let us remove this. We don't hide anything. Let me now focus on another new feature, which is the support for BARR-C 2018 coding standard. So this gives me the excuse to show you once again one of the main features of ECLAIR 3.7.0. So I want to only see violation for the services. Okay, here I could choose a particular service, but I want to set several of them. I want to see several of them. In particular, all those whose name begins with MC3. Okay, I want to show them. Okay, so here you see now I am seeing in the top part of the report only the BARR-C 2018. So I have prepared a selection of those. There are, if you follow the last webinar, and if not, please drop us a note. We will send you a link to the recording. So there are rules that have a strong connection with MISRA C 2012 and rules that are inherent to coding style. I have prepared a very small selection. The first thing that I want to show you is 1.8.b. Okay, so here we have a violation. So the guideline says the const keyword shall be used whenever appropriate. So whenever you can declare something const, you should do it. Okay, it's called const correctness. And here we have a violation. This gives me also the excuse to show you a feature of ECLAIR that is interesting if you don't know it already, that ECLAIR will decode the type defs. So ECLAIR is saying here you have this variable which has type uint16t pointer, that is unsigned short pointer. So you see ECLAIR is giving you a hint. So in this case, it's not very interesting, but in other cases, when you have complex type defs, a hierarchy is being reminded of what it is. It's very important. And okay, so since this is never modified, then you should declare it this way instead: uint16t pointer const. Okay, and this way you will obey the guideline. And okay, another guideline I wanted to show you is 1.6.a. Okay, it's a guideline about the typecasts. So it says that each cast shall feature an associated comment describing how the code ensures proper behavior. Okay, so when proper behavior is not ensured per se, so when the cast has the potential of causing problems, it must be accompanied with a cast. Okay, here we have a violation. ECLAIR, you see, it's explaining why it is a violation, because the cast is from unsigned, which on this machine is 32-bit, to a 16-bit type unsigned. So, what does this shift do? Is it possible that this shift will bring us above the 16-bit? Will wrapping take place? Is this wanted? Is this not wanted? So the BARR-C guideline says in these cases, you please put a comment so that you, in a week from now, or a peer reviewer will understand why do you believe that this cast that in general is dangerous, so it may provoke the loss of the value, of the sign, of the precision, for example, if you are casting from double to float, why you believe that the cast is okay. And then to show you the power of the exclusion mechanism, I adventure into this 3.1.j, which is a guideline that has to do with the presence of spaces. So there are 79 guidelines in BARR-C 2018 that are purely related to programming style. And this is one of those. And so here, what do we have? Here we have that this parenthesis should be preceded by a space. Okay, this is what BARR-C 2018 says. But here, okay, here we have something that we don't want for sure. So we have a violation which comes across a macro here, and the macro is defined in math.h. Okay, so There are, I on purpose, I didn't configure ECLAIR to automatically hide this in order to show you how I can handle this using this new feature of ECLAIR. So let me try here. So I want to hide the reports where the service is this one. So, but now all will disappear. Okay, not only this, I want also that the file is math.h. Okay, you see? So I have hidden all the reports concerning this rule, exactly this rule, such that one of the files is math.h. You see here I have another problem, is in the macro set jump, okay? So I can add here another one. So I want also set jump. You see, I succeeded. I'm very proud of myself, despite my inability to use graphical user interfaces. So now I only have the 3 violations that really are in the code of the project that was supposed to comply. Okay. Okay. Then last thing I want to show you, because it's something peculiar of BARR-C 2018, is the fact that there are several guidelines that prescribe the use of a vocabulary. Okay, so here is one. All comments should be written in clear and complete sentences with proper spelling and grammar and appropriate punctuation. So ECLAIR supports this feature. You can define the vocabulary for your project. There is a quite complete English vocabulary that is shipped along with ECLAIR. And once you have done that and you have enabled, you can, for example, find all things that are quite questionable. So here I've left some. You see, conf is not an English word. It may be okay, so we may want to add it to the project vocabulary. Furkan is the name of the author, and it was and it's not in the project vocabulary. So you see here we have proper misspelling, so enumeration, standard. I'm using it is not English, and this is not in the project vocabulary, and so on. Okay. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show concerning the new features, but as I've said before, ECLAIR has prepared several kinds of reports, and we only have clicked here. So we have seen the detailed reports. Well, another feature, as I said, was the fact that the computation of metrics is very easy now from the graphical user interface. Let me close this here because I want to show you where did we decide that we want to have the metrics here. Here we decided that we want to run an analysis with metrics enabled. Okay, go to browse. We have 3 directories: metrics, ODT, and TXT. Let's look at metrics. Okay, the metrics data is here. It's in this TXT file, which can be consulted quite conveniently, opening a pivot file, which is available in OpenOffice format and also in Microsoft Excel format. I have OpenOffice here. Okay, I enable macros. Okay, I am landed in a page where I am invited to adjust the thresholds, because the threshold should be decided by any individual organization. The HIS consortium has a proposal which is encoded in this, but other organizations may have different views. So once I have set the thresholds, I will go to the pivot sheet, and now I can see the metrics of the various, this is a small project, as you can see, there are divided by file and divided by function. We see the values of the various metrics. So for example, here is cyclomatic complexity, okay, and number of statements and so on. And the one in red are the ones that exceed the thresholds that were specified here. So this is enough for the new feature of using metrics conveniently. And now let me just go here. So ODT, ECLAIR produces a summary about the analysis that has been performed in ODT format. There are several parts which are included by book. Book is a full Monty. It's offensively long. Many organizations will not want all of it, will want to change book so as to include only certain parts. So I now show you book. So I opened it. It's the analysis project for analysis report for project present. Let me update the summary. Okay. Here is the update of the summary, where you can see that the report is very long. It is 200 pages. Why it's 200 pages? Because here there is everything. And by everything, I mean there is okay, this table of the findings, which you have already seen in the detailed reports. There is the explanation of the configuration we used in English. You see, what we did in the graphical user interface was to do something that I told you that had the effect of hiding the report areas that are in the third-party set. And here we can find the corresponding line in the ECLAIR common language, and here it is its explanation in English. Okay, here you can see that we enabled this set of services, MISRA-C 2012 release 1, bug finder, and so on. So there is this part very long about especially it is long because of the definition of the software quality objectives. There is a definition for all the 6 levels. Okay, so every service is inserted or not in the corresponding software level objective. Here we have all the services that were enabled. Okay, and here we have an exact determination of the analysis we did. So with many tools, all you can say is, oh, I analyzed more or less this version of the project. Whereas in the case of ECLAIR, so you can say exactly what you analyzed. For example, if we go to here, let me select a unit frame, this one. Okay, so this was produced at that time. So today is the 25th of March, and the analysis was done at that time, GMT. So the compilation produced this object file. I don't know if Control Plus works here. Let me view zoom a little bit like this. Okay, so this translation unit was compiled into this object file. Okay, and then the compilation involved all these files divided by directory, and each one presented with its own checksum, so that everything is reproducible. So I can provide to a third party the evidence that I didn't analyze just a version of the project, but when I did the analysis, these were exactly the contents of all the files that were analyzed. Okay, so you see there are many files that are in the language implementation, so it's in the directory of GCC of the standard library. Then there are files, of course, in the project source, and finally we have the main file of the translation unit. Okay, so this and at the end of this very long report, and I said you can skip all what you want. So it's you are not forced. Here we have the violations that remained in the project. So here we have the counts. So for this rule of MISRA 2012, we have 4 violations, 2 in this file, 2 in this other file. Okay, this is the only part that in only moderately safety critical sectors will be required. So it's only a few pages, and you can send just this to your customer. Okay, let me close this. And last thing, textual summaries. It's very easy. So here are the counters. So in textual format, where you can see the counters of violation or caution that have remained. So if you have to provide a progress report to your boss, say, you can just open this file, copy and paste the part you want, and send it. Okay, so this is the bad news. The bad news is we have still violation for these rules, but if you go to the bottom, you'll see there are the good news. We have no reports for all of these services, for all of these MISRA-C guidelines and BARR-C guidelines. So the project is clean for all of those, which is good. And okay, I think it took longer than I expected, and if there are questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. We've got a couple of questions, in fact. The first one is, can I analyze a project that uses more than one compiler?
Okay, there are, we have indeed customers that do so. They compile the same project with more than one compiler. And yes, here you can trap all the compilers you want to add. So if you have another compiler, you add here. So you look into the file system. So I think, yes, and ECLAIR will trap also this compiler, and you can, of course, add multiple indications for all the tool. Okay.
What about the tool qualification according to DO 178C of ECLAIR 3.7? Is it available, or which is the availability plan? We are already using 3.6 version with its qualification kit.
Okay, so yes, the qualification kit for 3.7 is has been released together with 3.7. The point is that 3.7 it's not a patch revision. It's a minor revision, meaning that only the second number has changed, but it means that it is a different product. So it is a completely different product. There are the qualification kit is different, so it's a different thing. Whereas, for example, if one has 3.6, then all the minor patch revision 3.6.0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they all share the same qualification kit. 3.7 requires a different qualification kit. So there are many new features. More rules have been added, and the checkers have been improved, so it's a different thing. Okay.
Okay. Next question. Can BARR rules be licensed separately or only combined with MISRA?
Yes, there is in conjunction with the release of ECLAIR 3.7.0, we have simplified our offering. So all the features are included in 2 packages, and by doing so, we have added a package which is called B. The B package is our entry-level package. It contains support for BARR-C 2018, the HIS metrics, the bug finder, the AUTOSAR C 2009 coding standards, and others. So it contains no support for any MISRA coding standard, and this is our entry level. So it's very convenient, and if one doesn't have a requirement for MISRA, the B package is the one to go for.
Okay, another question is, can I save the settings in the report, for example, hiding certain services, etc.?
Yes, the configuration I show you is persistent. Okay, so you will find it when you go back.
Okay, we've got last questions, but in the meantime, I'm going to launch a poll to see if some of you has other question and it's still in the process of typing them. So we will wait in that case. Let me just launch the poll and.
I thought we planned another poll, right? So we planned another poll in reality, because as I said, I only covered a very small part of the graphical user interface. I didn't cover at all the command line use of ECLAIR. I didn't touch the possible integration with Jenkins. So it would be useful to know if you are interested in this kind of, say, more technical, more detailed webinars about ECLAIR. So can you launch this webinar?
We've got someone, in the meantime, we got the result of the other poll, so someone is still in the process of writing, so we will wait, and in the meantime, let me launch this other poll. There it is, you should be able to see it. And while you reply, here's the last question. Are different IDBs taken into account in this case? How is it possible?
Yes, this is a question that would take a webinar in itself. So I can show you that how is that possible. So here you can see I'm going into this part of the detailed reports that are only useful for forensics and to making sure that everything is as expected. So here we can see that ECLAIR has intercepted this invocation of GCC with this command line options. Here is what I said before. I told you this project is being compiled in C99 mode, and in C99 there are 112 implementation defined behavior. So ECLAIR knows because it has intercepted the tool, it has obtained a command line, and it has done the right thing. So I can, as I said, this is something that is best done in a separate webinar. So, but I can show you this is something you cannot do at home. So I only can do it because I am using a particular version of ECLAIR where I can do things that ordinary customers cannot do. Let me launch this ECLAIR 3.7 libexec, and okay, so this is a tool that is used internally by ECLAIR. Here it is provided also as a separate tool in order to obtain the implementation defined bits that are relevant for the analysis. So it needs a compiler family. A compiler ID in this case is GCC, you see, okay? Here you can find a short identifier for all the families of compilers that are supported, and then the compiler executable and the compiler command. So in my cases, it is GCC is a family, GCC it's the a compiler executable, and the command was just GCC for this part of the experiment. So let me put this into a file named 1, for example. Okay, what is in file 1? It's all the implementation defined aspects that are relevant for the analysis. I don't know if you are seeing well here, but by invoking GCC several times, ECLAIR has discovered that for the compilation of C code, it will first search for header files in this directory, and then in this directory, and in this directory. Okay, it has this version of GCC, this particular version of GCC has a lot of predefined macros that are, it has a few hundreds for C, you can see them here, predefined C macros. And then it has a few hundred of macros for C++. GCC is a compiler driver. It can compile C and C++ code at the same time. So you can put a C program and a C++ program on the same command line, and it will compile them at the same time. That's why you need to know about both the sets of defined macros. And then all the implementation defined aspects are here. So where library are searched, digraphs are enabled, trigraphs are disabled, and so on. The built-ins that are offered by this version of the compiler, and then the widths and alignments of the different types. However, okay, so now let me do another experiment. We saw that the project was compiled not with command GCC, simple, but it had -std equals C99. And let me put this into file number, name it 2. Okay. And now, is there any difference between 1 and 2? Sorry. Yes, there are a lot of differences. Okay. The macros change. Of course, this was expected. You see, the compiler first was in a C11 mode, okay, and it correspondingly defined this macro. Now it defines a different macro, okay? Okay, so you see there are changes, okay? Things have changed. So this, just to give you an idea, of course, this is what happens with GCC. For all the other supported compilers, ECLAIR is able to automatically extract from the toolchain. So by invoking the toolchain, the compiler, for example, is invoked 10 to 20 to 30 times, depending on the toolchain. The results are put into a cache, of course, so that this price will have to be paid not at every invocation, but only the first time a certain compiler is invoked with a certain command lines, because the command line is relevant. So anyway, this is a topic for a possible webinar about the implementation defined aspects of the C language.
About other webinars, we are glad that the 93% of our attendees actually would be interested in other technical webinars. So we will make sure to schedule them and let you know.
Okay, so we are 10 minutes late. Does ECLAIR support the tasking compiler? Yes. Yes, it does support the tasking compiler. We have customers using it for Tricore and for PowerPC, maybe? I don't know. However, yes, it is supported.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roberto, and thank you again, everybody, for joining this webinar. And sorry for all the troubles with the audio and the video at the very beginning. Please don't miss out on our next one, which will be on April 16th. Next time, we will focus on MISRA-C's key role for the compliance to industrial safety standards. As always, if you'd like further information on ECLAIR and BUGSENG services, you can visit our website and, of course, reach out to us at info@bugseng.com. So thank you for now, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.